Greetings, it is I, Tempest Naravan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. We are still staying with this way we've been doing it for at least a couple more weeks here with this kind of video recording, but welcome back indeed to Werewolf the Apocalypse and World of Darkness. Yes, we're continuing with Werewolf where we left off. We had been talking about some of the things that could affect, like gaining renown, gaining rank. Today, we're going to talk about sources of injury and battle scars. We're going to go over a number of types of ways you could hurt yourself, and then, of course, a number of types of ways you could scar yourself. So let's start off for today by talking about, of course, the sources of injury, since that's the main topic we'll be hitting on today, out of the two. And the most common of these is, well, combat. Garou get into a lot of fights with each other, with various enemies. Combat is something that is critical to their existence in a way. And though in and of itself, depending on the type of combat and what's going on in the combat, could cause different types of damage, well, we're not really going to hit into it right now. This is going to be a later episode where we're going to talk in detail about how the combat system works. But just to assume that you're going to be in combat and you're going to be hurt. Now, another major one is, of course, falling. Hey, gravity's no one's friend. And everyone that falls eventually hits the ground. That's a great way of saying it. And werewolves are no exceptions. They can take falling damage just as much as any human or any other creature can. Now, this is usually considered bashing and may be soaked. And you take 1 level of health for every 10 feet you fall before hitting the ground. Rounded down, though. Regardless, though, once you hit 100 feet, you've reached terminal velocity. Effectively, 10 levels of health is the maximum you can ever take. Once you've taken that 10 levels, though, it's considered lethal, so humans can't soak it, and you are in trouble that way. And as I said, there can be circumstances like plummeting from a plane 2,000 feet where a storyteller will say, yeah, this is aggravated. This is something that's very difficult to foot soak in comparison to, I don't know, falling out of a building. So, falling, it's something you can hit. Fire. Fire is another one, because fire is kind of got that primal beauty to it, but it's dangerous. Like a garou. And it does aggravated damage. It's very good at killing humans, but werewolves, hey, you can soak it. You can soak it like you can soak any other damage, like you can soak aggravated. Now, the thing about fire is it's dependent on how big the fire is and what kind of heat it has. Those two factors determine the difficulty in soaking it. You're going to, of course, use your stamina, and the difficulty is going to be based on that heat. So the more hot it is, something like molten metal is much more heat intense than something like a candle. So one is definitely more difficult to soak than the other. The level of damage depends on how much you're getting. If you're just touching molten metal, maybe 1 level. While if you're dipped in it, well, you're a little bit more trouble. And it's going to be more levels of aggravated damage coming at you per turn of exposure. So it'll be up to your storyteller to determine how these things interact and what you're facing when you're encountering fire. Now, extreme heat, 200 degrees or more, basically heat that could cause water to boil, will be the exact same way. You're going to treat it just like you do for the fire, and it's going to depend on exposure, which is probably going to be more likely a full body exposure when you're talking about heat, though it depends on the circumstances. And the heat of itself will again be up to your storyteller, but consider extreme heat on that level of difficulty. Now, disease is another thing that we have to talk about. Garou, werewolves, they aren't immune to diseases. They do recover a lot faster than humans. Effectively, diseases inflict a number of levels of health, and with the proper rest and care, you can recover those levels of health slowly as a garou. Your healing abilities actually remove the ability to have minor ailments. Things like the common cold and flus don't affect garou. But even the most dangerous of diseases don't really do permanent health to a werewolf. You can be a carrier, but no permanent health. For a werewolf to have an effect on their body from a disease, it has to be a supernatural disease, or something of supernatural origin. This brings us to poisons and drugs. Most human drugs, most human poisons, don't really have an effect on garou. A good example would be if a garou wants to get drunk, wants to get intoxicated, you're either going to have to do it in your Homid form, where you have less regenerative systems in place, and therefore it's going to be more effective, or there is Awakening the Spirit, making something a little bit more potent, more supernatural to have an effect. But other than that, don't expect an effect to really hit you. Though there are some supernatural or worm-tainted toxins that exist out there that have full effects on garou, and if you should encounter them, they're probably going to do aggravated damage to you. Garou need to breathe, so you can suffocate or drown. It's one of those important things. Now, depending on your stamina, depends on how much time you can hold your breath. A garou, or werewolf, no matter the form, can automatically hold their breath longer than a human. That's an important thing to note. So the chart here that you're gonna look in the book is not comparable to a human's time holding their breath at all. Humans have trouble holding their breath a minute, let alone 4, while a garou with a stamina of 4, regardless of form, can hold their breath for 4 minutes. But form is an important thing here, because depending on the form you have, once you start holding your breath, take that breath in, depends on how long you're going to actually be able to hold your breath. Because if I change my forms, I might have a higher stamina. I still have the same amount of oxygen in my lungs. It's basically an efficiency. So if I'm in a form that has a stamina of 8, hey, guess what? I got 30 minutes of holding my breath. If I was in a form that had a stamina of 4 to begin with, I've got 4 minutes, regardless if I change into a form that's got a stamina of 8. You see that it's when you started holding your breath, what form that was in, that matters the amount of time that you're going to have for it. And again, this is assuming that you've taken a full breath, that you have shifted into the proper form with the best stamina before you worry about being underwater, being buried under anything that requires you to have to hold your breath. Now, this is even including stressful activity. If you're in combat and holding your breath, effectively the number of turns you can hold your breath is equal to your stamina during combat. There are extra rules for this, but we're going to switch over to the Storyteller's Companion to talk about that, and I'm not diving into water-based combat because it's a special book for it. If it comes up in your game, great! Use the book. It probably won't come up in your game. Don't worry about it. Now, once you can no longer hold your breath, you drown. Whether you're drowning in water or you're just suffocating under stuff, you take a level of lethal damage that you cannot regenerate per turn until you begin to breathe again. And once you reach incapacitated, you revert to your breed form and you die in a number of turns equal to your stamina. So it's a pretty quick death, but you do have some time to attempt to get out of the situation when you start running out of breath as a garou. An important note here is that you can spend willpower to attempt to hold your breath longer than was natural. If your stamina is 3 or lower, you get about 30 seconds per willpower you spend. If it's 4 or more, you get about a minute. So stamina can definitely increase the amount of time. But again, you have to rely on form and stamina at the time of starting to hold your breath to figure out your base time, regardless of shifting around. Now, we have to talk radiation and toxic waste, because worm sites, especially their kind of holy sites, will often be someplace that involves a lot of radiation. It's their thing. It's tainting the Gaia. It's changing it. And if a garou is exposed to this, just treat it the same way as you treat fire at extreme heat. It's the amount of exposure, the strength of exposure, things like that. But unlike fire, it takes twice as long to heal than fire for radiation and damage. Now, the last major source of damage we have to talk about, of course, is silver. It's werewolf's greatest weakness, and unfortunately, it's common knowledge. Even humans know that werewolves are killed by silver. It's in their popular culture. But the fortunate thing is, fashioning proper weapons, or even bullets, out of silver requires someone to be skilled enough to do it. It can be done, but it requires a little bit of skill. So silver causes aggravated damage, and it does actually as 1 level of aggravated per turn of contact with it. This is unless a werewolf is in their Homid/Lupid form, whatever is their breed form. If you're in your breed form, silver doesn't cause damage to casual contact, though a weapon made of it will cause normal damage for whatever weapon that is. If you're attacked with a silver in any other form than your breed form, then it will always do at least one level of damage to you, one level of aggravated damage, regardless of however it was encountered in with you. No matter how many successes you roll, you can't get away from that one. This is another important thing. You can't soak damage from silver weapons. That's an important thing. Except if you are in your breed form. Now, there are garou that carry around silver weapons, especially claves or grand claves. This gives them a very powerful ability to fight, especially other garou, but that kind of natural allergy that garou have to silver results in an effective loss of gnosis. And this remains in all forms, including Hamid, and you have to discard that silver object for at least a day for that gnosis to return. Now, if a pack carries silver items, for every 5 silver objects, the entire pack has a gnosis reduction. So if your pack is carrying too many silver items, it's going to have a effect to you all. And having too much silver items on you can also result in a loss of honor or wisdom of the pack. It's difficult to attain those things, and it kind of reflects badly if your pack is packing silver all the time. Now, the last thing we want to talk about today is, of course, battle scars. A garou heals pretty much all damage without ill effect. You know, a human might have a mauled leg, which would have permanent damage to muscles if something tore them apart, but the muscles and tissues and bones of a werewolf will grow back. There are some injuries, though, especially those that another garou might deal to you in some kind of ritual combat, which could be severe enough that have a lasting effects. These are battle scars. They usually occur when you must channel rage to remain active, effectively if you're being dropped incapacitated and you use rage to remain, or if a particular brutal or localized attack happens to you in some kind of way, it could cause a battle scar. The effects of these range from something severe like brain damage, which can have lasting effects, to something more cosmetic. It could just be some scars that you have. And it's going to be up to your storyteller to kind of determine how difficult and how dangerous and how deadly the battle scars that you're going to get are going to be. Now, battle scars do grant renown in the form of temporary glory. Healing this results in a loss of glory, although there are a few tribes, the Children of Gaia and the Glasswalkers in particular, that recognize the wisdom in healing battle scars. So you can get rid of the glory, but gain some wisdom. A little trade-off there, depending on your actual clan. Now, the book lists a number of sample battle scars. The thing about these samples is it's going to be up to your storyteller what's going on in the battle that's what caused these battle scars, what's going to happen that causes these injuries, to determine if they're appropriate or if they want to come up with something on their own. If you get hit in the head with very deadly attacks repeatedly, guess what? You're probably going to get some kind of horrible brain damage battle scar. It is important to note that the more visible your battle scar is, the more glory it's going to give. So if it's something that's not really shown very easily, then probably going to have less glory, but still might have horrible effects on you. Because, again, battle scars effects can range from cosmetic to actually debilitating, like brain damage. So you can see that there's a lot of trade-offs in this. And, again, up to your storyteller when the situations that would allow for battle scars as to what you actually get. They could come up with something on their own, use one of the examples, alter one of these examples, whatever. Battle scars exist. These are just examples to give you an idea as a storyteller of how to use them. But that's it for today. So I've been talking to you, of course, about various ways that you can get yourself injured. There are many ways to get yourself injured in Werewolf the Apocalypse, and I went over some of the more common ones. There could be unusual ones that you'll have to either figure out particular rules for if you're the storyteller, or reference some of the other books that are out there that might give you those ideas. But barring none combat, it's probably the way that your werewolf is going to get hurt. These other ways are just lesser possibilities that are more common than some of the other possibilities. Well, save for silver, which is probably going to come up too. And the battle scars is something that you have to consider may happen to you if you have to spend that rage to keep fighting, that you don't want to drop in battle. Battle scars are something which might be great for your garou, might be terrible. It's going to be up to your character how you're going to develop them and care for these, whether or not it's something that you'd want to heal or something that you'll live with because it's a cool scar. Anyway, I hope you're having a great day. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Please remember to check out all the links down below, such as my Discord, a great place to reach me, my Twitch, which I oftentimes live stream, especially games like Vampire and Dungeons & Dragons, and of course my Patreon, a great way to show some extra support and to push for some more edited content here, and more often edited content. Hey, if I've got the money, my schedule would allow for more. I can pay for an editor. But anyway, remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, always great some things, and until that next time, I bid you farewell.